Welcome to the Smart Gamble. We are winding it down. It is the championship weekend, guys. Coming off
Woohoo!
of like what? Has anyone ever seen a better weekend of football than last weekend?
Apart from that game, early game with the Bengals and Tennessee, even though there was some crazy bounces and a good ending, but the game itself was kind of But the
Still
other
ended in
game,
a last-second field goal.
it did.
Just, just
But the
like
game,
every single game, and we'll get into all those in just a second here. But of course, I'm Norm, joined by Lily and CJ on the Smart Gamble. We are what 3 episodes away from the end of the season. We've got today the lull, the worst week in football to me, the Pro Bowl week in between the championship and the Super Bowl, and then our Super Bowl episode that I know everyone prop bets galore and all stuff like that. But
yes,
we've got 2 games left before we decide who's in the Super Bowl, that were decided by 4 games that all had last-second field goals. And not just that, all 4 field goals were hit.
yeah, the kickers were the big story last week. The kickers were a big story, and of course, we saw some history. Those games, and we'll get into all the games from last week. But boy, that KC game in Buffalo,
Right.
crazy.
Oh, they left too much time for Buffalo. Oh, they left too much time for KC.
KC, yeah.
KC, yes.
A whopping 13 seconds.
13 seconds.
13 seconds.
Too much time.
You know, in 13 seconds, Mahomes threw 2 passes. He went from, it was the 21, his own 21-yard line to the 35-yard line in 2 passes.
Amazing.
I don't know if you
Absolutely.
guys saw. I love the game audio when you can hear the player, because most of them are mic'd up anyway, and they release whether it's on NFL Network or what's that show on Showtime, they release like the game audio on that last pass that set up the field goal. Kelsey on like 2 plays before was like, hey, they're leaving when they're in this cover 2 or the seam's wide open, so if they're in that, let me know. And they're lined up on that play, and all Mahomes goes, Kelsey, do it. And then they hike the ball, and he goes up the seam instead, and then there's 40 yards, and they're in field goal range.
Absolutely amazing. Travis Kelsey, first of all, is a money receiver. He has been money his whole career. And I mean, again, I think it's a matter of having Mahomes and Kelsey just being on that wavelength. They can read each other's minds.
Yeah.
Perfect combination, perfect storm. And it worked for him.
Yeah. I mean, that game was one for the history books to cap off an entire weekend, because I mean, who saw? I thought Green Bay, I almost stopped watching the end of that game, even though it was a 1-score game. They were only up a touchdown. It was a 10-3. I'm like, this game's over. The San Francisco, they cannot do anything on offense. Well, they didn't need to. You block a punt, you're good.
Yeah, it's funny because I thought Green Bay came into the weekend as the odds-on favorite to win the whole thing, and it took again a block punt, and it just was some crazy things there. The weather really didn't seem to allow either team to really do much on offense, but that block punt really was the key. That was the key. So some people are saying that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lily.
No, just like when Bosa sacked Rodgers, he had no clue Bosa was even behind him.
Yep.
Just had no clue.
Yeah, it was some crazy things there.
You couldn't see San Francisco doing much on offense, but yeah, let's talk about because San Francisco's still alive now. Their defense did hold Green Bay to 10 points.
Yeah,
that's insanity.
Yeah. San Fran has all of those things. Again, a good running game, a great defense. Those guys have all the hallmarks of a team that can really go the whole way. Even if they don't get a whole lot from offense, they can really, really do some things on defense. So, to your point, Norm, their defense really, really won that game for them.
Absolutely. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo is playing probably the worst he's ever played in his career, but they're still winning.
That is true.
All that matters, and that kind of leads us to so Rodgers, who I know, Lily, you were pulling for him to get that Super Bowl win, and I kind of was as well. Rodgers is out. We'll talk about where maybe he's going to go. Brady, we haven't really talked about that Rams-Bucks game, but Brady is out now as well. We're seeing all the old guard at quarterbacks that we expected to leave, and now we're left with Jimmy G, Joe Burrow, Matt Stafford.
Cool. Yeah. Joe Coolborough is a guy. I mean, can you imagine what his stock is going to be, his popularity if he wins this game this
Oh
week
my
in Arrowhead? He is coming fast.
God. Yeah.
He's coming fast, no doubt.
I know
Yeah, I mean, the
Lily.
ladies love him. He's a good looking guy, 25 years old, you know?
I think between him and Jimmy G, I think the female fans will be happy this
Oh yeah.
weekend.
Yeah.
I think all the ladies around America are pulling for a Bengals Super Bowl against San Fran. Jimmy
Yes.
GQ against Joe Cool.
Well,
Absolutely.
it's even besides Mahomes, like you talk about Stafford too. It's not like Matt Stafford's been around a long time now, but he was in Detroit, and I think it was right after the game or maybe Monday they were asked like, what did you feel about like getting traded to LA? Now you're here in the championship game. He's like, I just wanted to play in meaningful playoff games.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a prolific passer his whole career, and again, he had the title of a guy who has a big arm, he can throw for a lot of yards, and just simply was on bad teams or just couldn't win the big game. So, and again, he's showing me that he's more than just what he was in Detroit. He's a good quarterback, and if he can get past this week, get to a Super Bowl, I think he would have been worth the investment the Rams made in him.
Right,
And I want to go back to San Fran. Debo Samuel hurt in the third quarter. No doctors even check him out. He is like the wounded warrior. He gets the Wounded Warrior Award because he went back in, scored a touchdown, and then actually ran the pass that got them to do the field goal.
Yeah,
to kick the field goal.
He
Amazing.
is, and you mentioned it, is the run after the catch there. He is the best receiver in the league running with the ball after the catch. So statistically, and just look with your eyeballs, that dude with the ball in his hands is unreal.
And I think that there's some offensive genius to be given to the coaching staff. I mean, they also use him as a runner as well. They'll line him up in the backfield and they'll hand him the ball and he gets 7, 8, 9 yards a pop. So
maybe the most underrated offensive weapon in the league. Maybe, I don't know if it's because of the way that offense works, because the Niners offense isn't what you think of when you think of like, high-powered offenses, even though they did put up a lot of points this season.
They did.
He goes, if you go ask like an average fan, like name your, top 5, wide receivers or top 5 offensive weapons, his name's not going to come up a lot, but it should. My background with the fantasy, and I've got him on one of my dynasty leagues, so I've got him for, as long as I don't trade him, for his whole career. And I love that fact. Like he statistically, fantasy wise, is one of the top 5 wide receivers in the league, and people don't realize that.
Yep, credits that coaching staff and the way they use him. And again, he's a damn good receiver, a damn good runner, and San Fran's got a big chance with him in that lineup, no doubt.
And we'll talk about where they rank. We'll do our own power rankings coming up here in a little bit. All 3 of us are going to kind of take the 4 teams left and rank them. But and before I want to talk about Joe Burrow just a little bit more, as well as the Bills. But Rodgers is gone, Brady is gone, out of the playoffs at least. Let's clarify, out of the playoffs. They're out of the playoffs.
Yes.
Now, are they gone? Did Aaron Rodgers just play his last game in Green Bay, and did Tom Brady just play his last game ever?
Well, Tom Brady has talked about retiring, even though he doesn't want to, even though he's still like MVP level. He's talked about retiring. So he may retire. But as far as Aaron Rodgers goes, I could see him going to Denver because Denver picked up Nathaniel Hackett from Green Bay, their offensive coordinator.
Yes.
So would that be a power team or what? I would love for that to happen. That would be awesome.
Now, here's a question for you guys. What is the big deal about Denver? Why is all of a sudden, I mean, to me, if I'm a star quarterback in this league, why would I want to go to Denver? I mean,
Denver is one of the top defenses this season. They're like one of the top, if not the top defense.
I think Lily is on there with the defense. Not to mention, again, underrated. I mean, you've got Tim Patrick, who was a very good fill-in when the top guy got hurt, and that top guy, Jerry Jeudy, I wouldn't mind throwing the ball to him. Like he could become Devontae Adams Jr. if Rodgers goes there. They've got talent on offense. Obviously, got a couple of running backs in the backfield that you can hand the ball off to as well. I think you look at it and go, the talent's there. Was the quarterback the thing that was missing? I think they have more holes than Green Bay. Like I think, I mean, I guess that's the question too. Is Green Bay Rodgers' still best chance of winning a Super Bowl, or should he go elsewhere? And does that matter? Because I think it's just a relationship again when we get to this offseason and he's going to go like, all right, are you guys going to help me this time? You know, maybe Denver is more willing to help him out.
Yeah, here's my thing. From a personnel standpoint, this year, his best chance to win a Super Bowl was in Green Bay.
Yeah.
Now, next year, apparently they are like $44 million over the cap, and he counts for $46 million of it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even include Devontae Adams being a free agent. They got to re-sign him.
Yep.
So they're going to be way under the cap. So if it goes back to Green Bay, to that same team, they've got to cut a lot of people. So my feeling now is maybe they trade him for several draft picks, and maybe they just recoup some young talent and say la vie, and maybe he goes to Denver or somewhere else and starts over again. I agree with that.
They're not going to give him what he wants to.
No.
They just can't.
They can't, and that's not what they've done. That's not what Green Bay does as an organization. So I think his days in Green Bay are numbered. I think Denver is a very likely landing spot, but I also don't forget about Pittsburgh. We didn't really talk about Big Ben retired.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, by the way.
Speaking of quarterbacks that are on their way out, Big Ben said, I'm out. And which I think everyone kind of expected. We saw how his play really regressed throughout the season. I think that was best for both sides. Pittsburgh needed a fresh start there. And Big Ben, I mean, 5 years from now, is anyone going to remember this last season when you think about Big Ben's career? Probably not. You're going to think about 2 Super Bowls and probably a Hall of Fame career. But he needed to hang him up. And we saw the interaction between Tomlin and Rodgers when the Packers and Steelers played earlier this season.
Yes.
There's a high level of respect there between those two.
But which team, though, in your opinion, is more Super Bowl ready? Is it Pittsburgh? Is it Denver? Is it some other team? And I don't know about Pittsburgh right now. And Pittsburgh, I think they're hurting in a lot of areas besides the quarterback. So
yeah, I think they ended with the same record too. I think. Yeah,
I think it was very, very similar, and it's very similar situations too, because Pittsburgh's defense might be better than Denver's, but I think they slightly lack on the offensive side, weapons wise. You know, Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be a free agent yet again. You've got Chase Claypool there for sure. He could be something with a better quarterback. Okay, you've of course got Harris in the backfield, which is. He might be one of the best young running backs in the entire league.
Yes, Najee Harris.
Again, Pittsburgh is a place that you think like, oh, I'm going to go and play quarterback in Pittsburgh. Obviously, Big Ben did all right for his career there, but I don't know if Aaron Rodgers at all, when you're talking about Denver and Pittsburgh leaving Green Bay, I don't know if he's going to pull a Tom Brady and be like, I want to go a place where we play in like a dome or warm weather. Like, you know, that was part of Tom Brady's like, I'm sick of playing in New England. Let me go play in Florida. You know?
There you go. And as far as Aaron Rodgers' choice, now if he comes to the KC, he goes to if he comes to Denver, he plays KC twice a year. Right. He's got a team in Las Vegas that's getting better. And
he's gonna go play Herbert.
Yes, and Herbert twice a year for the Chargers. So he's jumping into the belly of the beast, going to the AFC West if he goes to Denver.
Well, you'd say the same thing if he went to to Pittsburgh, because obviously the Bengals have proven that unless they pull like a Jacksonville Jaguars and just plummet the next few years after an AFC Championship trip, I don't expect them to do that. They've got a very good young core there that they should be good for the next few years.
They do.
Baltimore had a very up and down season, but with Lamar Jackson healthy, they should be solid as well. I think that's a division. Cleveland, I don't know, who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, if Rodgers goes to Denver, then the AFC West has Rodgers, Mahomes, and Herbert.
Yeah, that's
going to be a hell of a conference.
Yeah, you can't count out Carr either. I mean, he was first few months of the season, he was an MVP conversation, Derek Carr.
Prolific passer. He's only 30 years old.
They made the playoffs this year.
Yeah. So that's a good division there, AFC West.
Yeah. So I mean that'll of course it'll be another Aaron Rodgers dominated all season with where he's going to end up because he's not going to be in Green Bay.
No.
But CJ, what are your thoughts on Brady? I think Lil, you're saying Brady's retiring. I'm gathering.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
I think I am too. I don't know. What about you, CJ?
I think I think it was set up perfectly for him if the Buccaneers had won it again this year. I think he flies off into the sunset and says, "See you later." I think he retires anyway. I mean, you literally are looking at a guy who literally has nothing left to prove. I mean, he had one of his best seasons statistically this year. His team did very well. He won a Super Bowl last year. He's 44. What more does he have to prove? I think for his sake, why put your body through another year of punishment? Why be away from your family for another year? He's done what he needs to do. And he's the greatest of all time, and nothing more can add to it. So I say retire.
Right. I agree. I think a lot of the insiders are saying this is the closest he's been, like, considering it. So I think Giselle will be in his ear. I think his body, I mean, he's 45 years old now. I mean, like,
Incredible.
That's ridiculous in itself. So yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. What else do you have left to prove?
Yeah, and it's funny because Brady has really made a commitment to his body, making sure that he stays strong and his body weight and so forth. And you juxtapose that with Ben Roethlisberger, who was gaining weight literally by the minute in Pittsburgh over the past several years. So, I mean, can you imagine what Big Ben could have been if he had taken care of his body a little bit more? He'd probably still be playing for another couple of years.
I guarantee you'll see a lot of the quarterbacks that are getting around that mid-30s, like Aaron Rodgers, is probably thinking like, all right, what did Tom do? You know?
Yeah. Take care of your body.
Because that's another conversation. I've got a buddy who's a Steelers fan, and he's like, I don't want Rodgers. What's he going to be, my quarterback for 1 or 2 years? Like, Rodgers is late 30s, but he could pull a Brady and play for another 4 or 5 years.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
So let's quickly shift before we start jumping into this week's games. Buffalo is, I think, another team that people had a lot of expectations for, and maybe exited earlier. I know they had a tough matchup with Kansas City, who's the defending AFC champions. But is Sean McDermott to blame there? Who takes the blame for another early exit on a team now that's losing some of their staff?
Yeah, I don't know what they're saying in Buffalo, but I mean, literally, it took an act of God for Buffalo to lose that game. I think Josh Allen did what he had to do. They went into Arrowhead. They played well, and whether they've hit their ceiling or not, I don't believe they've hit their ceiling. I think they're still going on their way upwards. I don't blame the coach. Now, can you imagine this? He kicks the ball along the ground, and all of a sudden, one of those speedy receivers takes it back to the 50-yard line. They would have been killing him. In Buffalo, saying, why couldn't you kick it deep? Why couldn't you just let your defense play defense for 13 seconds? That was literally an act of God. And I think that it was somehow preordained that Casey was going to win that game, no matter what Buffalo did. Buffalo did great. They did fine. I think they'll be fine next year as well.
Yeah, it seems like Buffalo is. I mean, this has been going on since Wide left in the early 90s. Like, this is. They go from that to 4 straight Super Bowls losing, to then their division getting dominated by Tom Brady for 20 years, and now they run into Kansas City every year, and it's just like they can't get past them. So I don't know. I as I brought up, though, they're losing, of course, their offensive coordinator to my Giants and Brian Dable. He's now the head coach. We'll talk about some of the coaching stuff in a second here.
Yes.
But you also don't know what other staff gets poached now that Dable leaves. A guy like that might take, Ken Dorsey's the quarterback's coach. Has he become the offensive coordinator in New York as well? Obviously, the reason Dable was hired was they lost their assistant GM in Joe Shane. So you worry sometimes when you're really successful, but you don't win that Super Bowl and people start poaching from you.
Yeah.
That things start to slowly crumble under you.
Yeah. So Buffalo, again, losing the offensive coordinator to the Giants and so forth. I mean, so obviously, as you mentioned, Norm, they're losing a lot of the brain trust of that organization. So really, it's going to come down to, can they replace those guys, keeping the same personnel on the field? And I think they're fine there.
Yeah, I think that's not an issue.
Keep drafting well, keep getting, your free agents and so forth, and you'll be fine. But you got to replace the brain trust in the front office and so forth. So hopefully they'll be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's shift into some of the coaching talk then. We did have a couple other coaches hired besides Dable. We had Matt Eberflus in Chicago, and all the GM positions are filled.
Right.
But still a lot of openings out there.
Yeah, I count 6 right now. I count
Yeah.
Houston, Miami, Jacksonville, Minnesota, Vegas, and New Orleans. And so out of that list of teams, what do you guys think is the best available job as far as open coaching jobs? I think it's Vegas.
Vegas and Miami. I would say
Nailed
Vegas.
it. I was going to say Miami. So I think I think we're all on the same wavelength there. So I'm sure the rest of the league is as well. Because Vegas has the talent. I mean, you've got a quarterback already kind of in place that's proven. You've got a decent enough defense, and you've got good running backs, good wide receivers. Yeah, I think Vegas is there. Hey, they made the playoffs with an interim coach.
They did, and a player. And it's funny, Bisaccia, the guy who's there right now, the players love him, and so I actually felt a little bit put out. If I'm him, if I'm Rich Bisaccia, I'm like, why are you guys even considering interviewing other coaches? Why not keep this guy? The players would definitely rubber stamp that. So a little bit strange there, but hopefully, that job will be filled with the right guy. And even if it's somebody else, maybe they keep him as a coordinator. So we'll see how that goes.
Right. Yeah. And then Miami. I mean, we talked about. I think Lily, I think you picked Miami a bunch of times this season.
I did. Yeah.
And that 7-game win streak.
Lily won a lot of money on Miami this year.
Yeah, they had a 7-game win streak. Obviously, fell short in the last couple of weeks, but I think we're all in agreement that we like Tua, right?
I like Tua.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not quite sure if Miami likes Tua, but I like Tua. I still think there's a specter of Deshaun Watson kind of hovering over that stadium. And if they can figure out a way to get him, I think they do it. But I like Tua. And I think he's got to get a little stronger, a little tougher. But
develop
he's
more.
Fine. Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah.
Just stay healthy, too. I think he, in that win streak, I think he was finally healthy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now speaking of the whole coaching thing and the direction of teams going, your Giants obviously hired a good guy from the Buffalo Bills.
I'm happy.
What's the next step in the Giants' progression? I mean, what do they need to do to get to being a playoff level team?
Well, they've got these 2 picks, the number 5 and number 7 pick. And I as a Giants fan, like, everything's settled, the dust settled. Here's who the candidates are for GM. Here's who the candidates are for head coach. Like, I got my number 1 and my number 1. Like, I'm happy, which hasn't been the case with the last 2 hirings. with going back to Pat Shurmur and going back to even back to Ben McAdoo. I don't know if I was in love with that one, hiring him from the offensive coordinator. So I think, I guess Joe Judge, I was pleased with it, but hiring some guy I never heard of as a special teams coach, head coach, that was a risky move.
Yeah.
But I think they need to. I think hiring an offensive guy like this, you're going to see one more year, Daniel Jones, prove that you're the guy. If not, they tear that offense completely down and rebuild it.
Now, I might be taking more of an extreme look at this. I mean, for the past several years, they've been saying the Giants have no O-line, they have no O-line, and here we are 5 years later, they still have no offensive line. I am not the biggest Daniel Jones fan in the world. I don't think he's terrible, but I don't think he's great. I don't think he's the answer, put it that way. He's not the answer.
Right.
And the other thing that I would probably consider too is why not trade Saquon Barkley now? I don't know if Saquon Barkley is the guy at running back. I think you tear that thing down. I think you get some draft picks for him. He's 26, maybe 27 years old. So
not even, I don't think you could still, and he's been banged up, but when healthy, here's the thing about Saquon is when he's healthy and you watch the highlights, the guy is Barry Sanders light, basically. He can do anything. He can catch the ball. What's one of the best highlights of the Giants season this year? It was that one-handed grab he made and all that. It was gained for 2 yards though. So that's Saquon. I love him. He's from locally around here. He went to Whitehall. If you're from the Lehigh Valley.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
He went to Whitehall High School, played at Penn State. So, here in the Poconos and PA, like, people love him. I was actually working at the stations when they interviewed him and got to talk to him a little bit on the phone. Like, that kid is, I can't even call him a kid anymore. He's a grown man now and makes millions of dollars to play football. But that guy is as good a guy. He's a solid guy to have in a locker room. Like, he's a role model that you'd want your kids to follow. But when I watch him play, and then he's been hurt so much, so I've gotten to watch a couple different running backs fill in for him. And it's like, I think I would take this kind of, a much smaller payroll cut for a guy to just run forward and get 4 or 5 yards on an average play and maybe bust one for 10 or 12, as opposed to trying to create something out of nothing every single play like he tends to do. And it's 1, -3, 1, 40. I'll take, just put us in short yardage positions, and that's just not what Saquon does.
And again, and you mentioned leg injuries. He's had now several leg injuries.
Yeah.
He's getting into his mid to upper 20s now. And again, I think at some point the trajectory for running backs, it's like a cliff, literally.
Yeah.
One year you're doing great, and then next year you literally can't run the ball anymore. And I think the NFL is pretty much proven you can get running backs anywhere. You don't have to pay them $10-15 million.
It's the position you hinder your salary cap by overpaying, or not even just overpaying, because you can't really say you're overpaying for a guy is that talented, but just paying a guy that much at a position where you're the top guys versus like the middle of the road. There's much less separation.
Exactly.
Between that than any other position. And I think when you pay a lot for a running back, you hinder yourself to build your roster elsewhere. And I think the Giants are not in that position to be able to do that.
I agree. So I would tear it down. If I'm the new staff now, I tear it down.
I would as well. I just don't. I think with Daniel Jones' situation, with his contract situation being at least one more year, I don't know if they give him that 5-year, 5th-year extension, which they have to do this offseason if they want to. I don't know if they do that, but I think they run it back maybe one more year just to see what they got under real coaching. Maybe, I don't know, under better coaching.
Yeah, we'll see.
And I do expect them to spend at least one of those 2 high draft picks on an offensive lineman just to hey, like, let's put something in front of you and let's see like what you can do with some blocking in front of you. But I don't expect Daniel Jones' time to be in New York to be that much longer.
I agree.
No.
All right, let's talk about better teams. I'm sad they've been so bad for like 8 years now. It almost pains me to talk about them. Let's talk about some teams that are still left playing. 4 teams are left. Let's power rank them. Let's you know what? Lily says, why are we talking about these experts? We're the experts, right? Look at what Lily's record is.
Absolutely.
Lily's better than all the experts.
And before we go into the power rankings, I just have to show you my stuff in tribute to Hayden. What do you think? We got to say hi to Hayden because he's feeling very left out in the postseason.
There he is.
Hey, you may feel left out. You haven't been making some picks this season, but I'm sure he's been rooting for the Bengals. He's been watching the Bengals win those games. He's the biggest Bengals supporter I think we got.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
Besides us, right? No.
Right. Besides, yeah, I think a couple of us are pretty big Bengals supporters as well.
Yes,
and you know what? That might show here in a second here, because let's give our power rankings. How do we want to do that? Do we want to just bounce around, go 1 through 4 each of us, or do we want to all give our?
Well, let me tell you, the NFL came out with their own power rankings this morning.
Oh, they did.
They did. So they have it as Kansas City, San Fran, Rams, Bengals.
Okay,
and I'm kind of disagreeing. I'm Kansas City for sure, because I mean Mahomes, he's had in this postseason, he's had 8 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing.
Yep.
He's averaged 301.4 passing yards per game, ridiculous, which is the highest in NFL history for an average. Highest.
Crazy.
So yeah, I put them as 1.
Yeah.
I put the Rams as 2, 49ers 3, Cincinnati 4. What do you guys think?
I'll go first because that's my exact rankings. I have the exact same rankings. CJ, I wouldn't be surprised if you have the Chiefs as 1 as well. I think that's like the obvious one. Where you can differ though, I have the Rams too, because I think that's the most talent. That might even be the more talented roster than even the Chiefs. You could maybe argue that.
Yeah, I actually was debating whether or not I would put the Rams at 1 and the Chiefs at 2.
Ooh.
The way the Rams are playing right now with
Yeah.
Odell Beckham, Cooper Kupp, they are really, really playing well. The defense is playing great. So I have a hard time between those two teams. And I think I would keep San Fran at 3 and the Bengals at 4. And again, the Bengals have a very, very good roster as well. They have Jamar Chase, his
Yeah.
wide receiver. They have Joe Mixon, the running back, of course, Joe Burrow. And they may show us, America, this week, that we were sleeping on them probably a little bit too much, maybe, if they can go into Arrowhead and play well and win. But right now I have them at 4 until they show me otherwise.
So it looks like we all are in agreement with our power rankings, which differ a little bit from the NFL's, because they had what, San Fran at 2, you said?
Yes, and
So,
the Rams at 3.
I mean, what do you guys think about San Fran being 2? I mean, CJ, you just said you almost had the Rams 1, so I guess you really disagree with that, right?
Yeah, with San Fran, again, you can make an argument because they are a very complete team, despite the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo, again, and he's probably a better. Yeah, he's a weakest link, but he's been hurt. He's got a hurt thumb. He's got a hurt shoulder.
Right.
But they really have an offense that doesn't depend on him to be a Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
They say, hey, manage the game. We'll run it. We'll do some funky things to the defense, and then you throw it when you have to throw it, and you make that pass, make that 3rd down and 7 pass every once in a while. So they really
Debo Samuel.
Debo Samuels, exactly. But yeah, so I think they're a very, very complete team, despite the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't been that guy. He hasn't been Joe Burrow. He hasn't been Patrick Mahomes. So you can make an argument that from a team standpoint, they are a pretty well-rounded team.
It's funny because the argument I really had is 1 and 2 Chiefs Rams for me were easy. I was struggling between if I wanted to put the Bengals at 3 and the 49ers at 4. So it's kind of funny that the NFL networks got them at 2, and I'm almost putting them at 4. I think that might be because I'm really high on the Bengals, but because I don't disagree with anything you just said, CJ, about Garoppolo not, he is maybe the weakest link, but not having to rely on him. This is the NFC and AFC championship games, and soon to be the Super Bowl if you win. You've got to rely on your quarterback. You may not want to, but you've got to have a quarterback that you rely on in this part of the playoffs. We've seen teams that have weak quarterback play make it to this, far, maybe even make it to the Super Bowl. Very, very far in between do they actually win, though. The Jacksonville Jaguars are, an example of Blake Bortles a few years ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got to go back to the 2002 Bucks or like Trent Dilfer and the Ravens in 2000, where we just carried this quarterback to a Super Bowl win. Quarterback play ultimately dominates the playoffs, and that's why I'm kind of iffy on Jimmy G, because you're gonna game plan to all right, beat us, Jimmy G.
Yeah, and it's funny because a couple of years ago they were in a Super Bowl and they were playing against Kansas City, and they had a 10-point lead in the 4th quarter, and there was just one pass. Jimmy G doesn't overthrow the receiver. Right. They win that game.
Right.
So again, every once in a while, you have to make that one play or that one set of plays, 3rd down plays. Don't miss a wide open receiver. Don't take a bad sack. Don't throw a bad pick. And so, and of the 4 quarterbacks in the playoffs right now, he's the one guy who has more of that, that one questionable play here and there that can really separate yourself from a win and a loss.
Right. All right. Let's move on to what people are really tuning in for. Let's make some picks.
There we go. Let's make some money.
Everyone is waiting to see who Lily is picking because she's been nailing every single pick for the regular season and almost through this playoffs. I think the only pick you've missed in the playoffs, Lily, is because you gave out 2 picks that first week, right?
Right.
Yes.
So you went 1-1 that first wild card weekend. But all right, let's get into it. Let's start with the Bengals Chiefs. That's the first game on Sunday. Is the AFC Championship game. It's the bigger line of the 2, I believe, this morning at least. Yes. I don't know what it started at, but this morning it's a full touchdown, 7 points. Anyone siding on one of these?
My lock of the week is the Bengals to cover.
Woo!
Wow.
They are absolutely going to cover.
I'm in agreement, actually. And I feel good about that too, because usually when Lily takes a dog, especially a big dog, they sometimes win outright.
They went outright, no doubt.
I guess that's what we could ask is with Lily picking the 7-point underdog Bengals, do they win outright? Can they win?
It's a possibility. Even some of the experts are picking them to win outright.
Yeah.
And why would that be?
The other so-called experts.
Right. Why would that be? Because KC's they've been in the Super Bowl the last 2 years.
Yeah, well, I think the other thing too to consider is that KC, I mean, if you put this in a category of just really, really emotional wins, last week counts probably as much as any win I've ever seen.
Yep.
Then maybe there's a little bit coming back down here, hangover from that. And the other thing to consider is that the Bengals beat KC in Week 16. They played them in Cincinnati. They won by 3 points. It was a shootout. So the Bengals really have nothing to fear. I mean, they obviously are going against a great team, but they stood right there with them toe to toe back in Week 16. So I too have the Bengals to cover. I think KC wins, but I think the Bengals cover. The 7 points is a lot of points to stare at right now this time of year, and I think that might be a little bit inflated. And I think as far as the over under, I think the game goes over.
Oh, that's a high total though. It was a 54.5, I believe.
I'm seeing like a 30-27 kind of win, 31-27, that area.
Yeah,
I think the game goes over.
I could see that.
I agree as well. I think it's a high number to hit the over on, but I think this game's in the 30s. I think both teams might be in the 30s because as much as I love both of these teams, and neither of their defenses really are that good either. It's kind of different, the dichotomy of AFC to NFC. You've got a definite shootout. On the other side, you can see a lot of defense being played. So kind of interesting. We're all kind of in agreement on that pick. I don't know if I feel good about that.
Yeah, that's true.
And Burrow's going in with such a good attitude too.
Yeah.
I
have that written in my power ranks. I had a couple notes written about like why I put them there. Bengals, it's like I felt bad putting them at 4, but I wrote right under them, house money. They may be 4, but they are playing with house money. No one even expected them to make the playoffs. Right. Now they're in the AFC Championship game. 0. The Chiefs have all the pressure in the world.
Absolutely, they do.
They do.
I mean, if the
Bengals don't,
the Bengals, oh my God, like what are you doing?
Now, here's a question for you guys. Does America want the Bengals to win this game this week? 100%. Does America want to see? You think yes?
I think 100% yes.
So you're thinking that America?
I think a lot of people have jumped onto the Cincinnati Bengals bandwagon.
I think a lot of people agree. I agree. A lot of people are on that bandwagon. It's something different. People don't like seeing when you're so good. Even like everyone loved Mahomes when he first broke out. The no-look pass, all this offense, the creative plays. Beating Brady in the Super Bowl, all that. Like you see the interest of America when there's a new toy, new offensive quarterback, new toy that they all latch onto, like, oh my God, we love them. But then when you start being so good so often, they get tired of you a little bit. And I think that's starting to happen with Mahomes. And I'll throw this out there. I don't know if you guys pay attention to this. I no offense, but I'm definitely the younger part of this crew here. And I might be a little bit more attuned to like the.
I'm not quite sure how to take that. No, I'm not quite sure how to take that last comment. So.
Me too. No offense. Come on.
Are you calling me like a senior citizen or something? Geritol every day.
But if you're paying attention to like the Instagram memes and stuff like that, so you guys might be not aware of Jackson Mahomes, Patrick Mahomes' brother.
Okay.
Who loves to post nonsense on TikTok and think that he's always at the game. He's like dancing on the other team's logo. He's doing stuff in the box. And I think a lot of the younger crowd in America that watches football sees that because they're on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. I'm just aware of it. But they see that and they hate the Chiefs just because they don't want to see Jackson Mahomes at any more games. So
okay.
That I think a lot of the younger, the younger America is rooting for the Bengals because 1, Burrow, and 2, because they don't like the Mahomes family.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
We'll see what happens though.
We'll see.
So let's move on to, I think that we could ask this question about this game as well. It'd be an interesting answer to this one, but let's talk about the picks and over under first. To the nightcap, to the Rams and 49ers, a divisional matchup.
What do you think, Lily?
I like the Rams to win outright. I think San Fran is going to cover. I'm picking both dogs
okay.
this week. I think San Fran's going to cover. I think it's going to be a close game. I mean, San Fran didn't beat him the last 6 times for no reason. You know, they kind of got their number.
That's a heck of a stat.
So
Yeah.
so I'm thinking the Rams will win, but San Fran's going to be right there with them.
How about you, Norm?
It's tough. I kind of want to side with Lily there, but I think this is going to be a close game, but I think the Rams are just a more complete team. I think when you look at San Fran's strengths, I think the Rams are just a better matchup for them. I think they're a tough matchup because they also have a great defense that can kind of go toe to toe with San Fran's and try and keep this a close game as well. But I think that front four is going to get to Garoppolo. I think they're just going to rush for and kind of like what they did against the Bucs. You know, they got to Brady while still being able to drop 7 guys back. And Brady was under pressure most of that game. He was struggling to do what he normally does. I think they're going to say, Garoppolo, beat us. We're gonna stop the run here. We're gonna commit to stopping the run, and then you're gonna have to drop back. And Aaron Donald and all these guys are still gonna be able to get to you. You're not gonna have time to really do what you want to do back there and play on the fly. And I think the Rams are just a bit more talented than the Niners. And while I think this is a close game, if this was a 5-point line, I think I'd maybe take the Niners, but 3.5, maybe I lose on the hook. Maybe I lose with that 0.5, but I think I'm going to take the Rams on this one.
Yeah, as you both have mentioned, the Niners literally own this team. They've won six straight games outright. So not even 6 straight covers, 6 straight wins.
Outright, yeah.
Yep.
But this Rams team looks a little bit different right now. Like as you mentioned, all your points, Norm and Lily, are well taken. Their defense is monstrous. I love the way Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham are playing together now at the wide receiver. Cooper Kupp is otherworldly. And Odell seems to have settled in. I mean, he's not the number 1 option there, and he's okay with that.
Yeah.
He contributes 3, 4, 5 catches a game.
And he'll still open it up for Cooper Kupp to somehow be wide open at the end of games.
Exactly. I also like the Rams to win this game. I think San Fran keeps it close. And I think, again, the whole hook thing really gets me. I think this is a 3-point game. I think San Fran hangs in there. But I think the Rams ultimately will get a chance to play Super Bowl in front of their home fans in SoFi in 2 weeks.
Kind of forgot about that.
I think so too.
Forgot about that aspect of it. 2 years in a row. Maybe we could get that.
Yeah, the only thing about this that makes it difficult for me is, do I go over or under this game? I think I'm going to go over.
I don't even want to touch this one. Because I could see this game, like I mentioned, both defenses could be really good. This game could end up kind of like San Fran's game. It could be 13-10. I wouldn't be surprised. But then again, you look at these offenses, you look at some of the games these two teams even played together. This game could end up in the 30s as well, like Kansas City and Cincinnati. So I'm just enjoying this game from an over-under standpoint. This is my stay away pick. So stay away from the over-under.
So now, do you think? So as far as San Fran's chances of winning this game or covering, do you think they have a better chance of doing it if the game is a low-scoring game, or if the game is a high-scoring affair?
That's a great question. I think
scoring.
San Fran's chances are if this is a low-scoring game. Yeah.
Yep. I agree.
And
should be interesting.
What you brought up with the last game is, who do you think America is rooting for in this one?
Oh boy, I will have to say the Rams.
Yeah,
I would say the Rams. I don't think it's a really big swing. I think it might be like down the middle close, but I think the fact that it's LA, it's a great market there. Chance to have the Rams play in their home stadium. I think that might be
power. I think on San Fran as well. Or should be on LA as well.
Exactly.
People know Stafford. People know Aaron Donald. People know Odell. I think people
are
starting to know Cooper Kupp if they don't.
Yeah, I mean, he had one of the best wide receiver seasons of all time, and he just gets very little press over that. So I think he's kind of under-respected there, and I think people are gonna see the real Cooper Kupp this weekend and next, and if they win, of course, in 2 weeks, they'll get a chance to really appreciate him.
Next year's fantasy drafts, I used to try and pluck Cooper Kupp in like the 5th, 6th round. That guy's gonna be like a 2nd round pick now. I hate it. All right, well, that leaves us, I guess, what are our Super Bowl predictions then? We've got 4 teams left. We all kind of just chose who won. Who's in the Super Bowl? As we say right now, of course, we'll make the pick next week as well, or maybe 2 weeks. We're going to have a show next week, but I don't know if we might save our picks for that last show.
Right.
But as it stands right now, 4 teams left. Who's in the Super Bowl? Who's winning?
Okay. If you go with your head, it's going to be Kansas City and the Rams. But I'm going with my heart. I'd love to see the Bengals and the 49ers.
A slight disagreement in between your head and the heart.
As Lily and I were speaking before the show, I think the ladies around America are going to want to see Joe Burrow and Jimmy GQ in that Super Bowl. That's who they're rooting for, and I have no problem with that. My heart says San Fran as well. My head says LA to win, and I think it's going to be LA against Kansas City.
Yeah,
like Kansas City. I truly do think the pressure is going to be too much, and I'm picking a Bengals-Rams Super Bowl.
Woohoo!
I like.
Nice.
I might actually pick the Bengals outright tomorrow. I might actually throw a couple bucks on an outright pick on the Bengals just because the odds are there too. I truly think the pressure is going to be there, and Joe Burrow's shown this is exact same situation he was in LSU. Like no one thought no one thought those Bengals were going to be winning either.
Right.
You know, so the Bayou Bengals pulled it out in college, and I think these Cincinnati Bengals are going to shock the world as well, and pull it out here and beat Kansas City.
And on a personal note, I think I saw a press conference the other day with Joe Burrow. He was wearing those rectangular, pinkish looking. I've been trying to find those for like years now. I had them years ago. They apparently went out of style. He brought them back. I want those glasses, Joe. Come on, Joe. Send me those glasses.
Setting the fashion trends as well. That's what a star quarterback does, doesn't he?
like a mini Joe Namath way back in the day.
Yeah, right.
They call him Joe Cool. Hey,
Joe Cool.
Why not? Why not? All right, guys. We'll see if we get spoiled again on another championship week. If it could be half as good as last weekend, we're in store for a great Sunday.
Oh yeah.
And then, as I mentioned, we will be back next week. In between, we'll do. They'll probably be the most different show that we've done this entire season. It'll be kind of storylines. Maybe throw some prop bets out or something like that, or things. We'll talk about what happened this past week as well. But we will be here in between the Super Bowl, and of course, we will have our big blowout end of the season show. Of course, the day before the Super Bowl. But great show, guys. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you want to reach out to us, of course, it's smartgamble@gmail.com. And you can get more picks there as well. For CJ, for Lily, I'm Norm. Closing thoughts, guys.
Visit our website, thesmartgamble.com.
Smartgamble.com as well, of course. We'll find us on social media.
Yep. By next season, you'll be able to purchase our locks of the week and our all of our picks. Yep, so look for that next season.
And then, of course, like and subscribe, whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Make sure you're subscribed so you know when the episode drops each Saturday.
Yep, and be sure to make sure you get to your local watering hole and get those appetizers and those adult beverages ready for the big games, guys. It's very important.
DT's was a lot of fun last week.
Yes, it was. It really was a lot of fun. Thank DT's again for last week, and that was a lot of fun.
Yep.
All right, for CJ, for Lily, I'm Norm. We will talk to you next week and enjoy the championship games.
Yes, thanks for joining us. Games.